Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakahakodash Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 10 to 12. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also, and the works that are therein, shall be burned up. And what's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth are nuclear missiles, because nuclear destruction is biblical, and nuclear missiles will be fired to the ends of the earth during this upcoming third woe, World War III, which is going to usher in the end of this current age of the heathen nations, chiefly the Edomites ruling, and usher in the age where the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are going to rule for eternity in the kingdom of heaven. Verse 11, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, speaking to the elect of the nation of Israel, the 144,000 and the rest of the righteous 1/3, who have come back to their power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, and are being in the right holy conversation and godliness, doing whatever they can to stay in the good graces of their power, so they can hope to have that protective hedge over them and be saved from this coming nuclear destruction, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High. And if you're in that right spirit, you're hastening for this nuclear destruction to take place, because when it happens, just like I said, it'll be the end of this current age of the heathen nations ruling and the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. And over the past couple of years, there's been increasing talks of a new Cold War and these different heathen nations building back up their nuclear arsenals. During Trump's presidency, he took the U.S. out of several treaties that were put in place to deter a nuclear conflict between the U.S. and Russia. And it's all through the will of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai that these things are taking place, so that these nations can fulfill prophecy and go against each other during this third woe, this nuclear-armed World War III. And I'll just be going through a few articles in this video to show that we're getting closer and closer to this inevitable nuclear confrontation. And the first article I'll be going to is on Reuters.com, titled, Biden's defense budget seeks greater China deterrence and nuclear funding. U.S. President Joe Biden's $715 billion Department of Defense budget will shift funding from old systems to help modernize the nuclear arsenal to deter China, while also developing future warfare capabilities, people familiar with the budget said. And while you've got the U.S. Building up their capabilities to go against China, the main nation that's going to bring about that nuclear coup de grace to the United States of America will be Russia. Russia and its allies like China, and also the allies of the United States of America, which are going to turn against her in that day and ally themselves with Russia to altogether shoot 200 million nuclear warheads onto the United States of America, turning it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. The defense spending request, which will be sent to Congress on Friday, is expected to contain investments in troop readiness, space, and for that Space Force that the dragon and his angels are going to use to fight against Yahweh Shai and the heavenly host, or the fleet of chariots, when they return to make war against the heathen nations, and Yahweh Shai also returns to save the elect. The Pacific Deterrence Initiative aimed at countering China's military buildup in the region and nuclear weapons technology, the people said. The budget request would buy ships, jets, and pay for maintenance and salaries, but an additional $38 billion is earmarked for defense-related programs at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Energy, and other agencies bringing the national security budget to $753 billion, a 1.7 increase over the 2021 figure. There will also be money to further develop and test hypersonic weapons and other next-generation weapon systems as the military aims to build capabilities to counter Russia and China. And if you've been paying attention to these hypersonic weapons, you would know that Russia and China's capabilities are far in advance of what the U.S. has. The U.S. is playing catch-up to them, and this is all by the will of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, so these nations can be further aided in shooting those nuclear missiles onto the United States of America with ease. Let's skip this part. Jump down to right here. Despite shaving numbers from older systems, the Biden administration will continue to invest in modernizing the U.S. nuclear triad, an expensive undertaking that will cost an average of more than $60 billion per year over this decade and more than $1 trillion in total, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Funding will go to improve nuclear command and control, as well as delivery platforms like the Columbia-class nuclear submarine made by Huntington Ingalls Industries and General Dynamics, and the certification to carry nuclear bombs aboard the stealthy F-35 jet fighters. Like I said earlier, over these past couple of years, you've been hearing an uptick in talks about a second Cold War and these different heathen nations building up their nuclear arsenals. Again, it's all through the will of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, gearing these heathen nations up to eventually shoot those nuclear missiles onto each other, because nuclear destruction is biblical. This is Joel chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 1 to 8. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. And that's exactly what the true men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, through GMS or Great Millstone, are doing by going out onto the highways and byways to preach this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, blowing the trumpet to let the hopeful elect know that these terrible times are coming and what they need to do to stay in the good graces of their power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, to be safe from these calamities, and also to tell 2/3 of the nation of Israel who are hard-headed and refuse to return under their power, and you heathen nations, what your judgment and punishment is for your wickedness. For the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand. And if you have that spiritual eyesight, you can clearly see that it is very nigh at hand. All these end times prophecies that Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, told his disciples to look for, are either in the process of coming to their fulfillment or taking place as we speak. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There had not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. And that great people and a strong are referring to those nuclear missiles, and where it says there had not been ever the like, that's referring to how they came about very recently, beginning with those 2 atomic bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima during World War II, that second woe. Neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. That's talking about how when these nations shoot their nuclear missiles, every single one will be fired. Not a single one will be left in a silo or a launch platform. And then after the dust settles, that's when the elect of the nation of Israel is going to start in putting you heathen nations into hardcore bondage and slavery for 1,000 years to build up the kingdom of heaven. And of course, we're not going to allow you to build any more weapons of war. Verse 3, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. Talking about the top of that missile, that warhead where the missiles are, and behind them a flame burneth, talking about the rocket booster behind the missile that propels it to go towards its target. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them. Before those nuclear missiles hit the land, it looks normal. You've got cities and people and animals and forests, etc., etc. And behind them, a desolate wilderness. After that nuclear warhead hits its target, what does the land look like? A desolate wasteland, like these apocalypse movies like Mad Max or those video games like Fallout. Yeah, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of the chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. And the reason the prophet Joel described these missiles as a great people and a strong, horses and horsemen and chariots, is because what you have to remember is that when the prophets saw these visions thousands of years ago, they didn't know what a modern day nuclear missile was. So they described it the best way they could with what they knew during their times. Ancient weapons of war like bows and arrows, chariots, horsemen, spears, flying swords, etc., etc. Verse 6, before their face the people shall be much pained, the people being in a state of utter terror and shock, hearing those sirens go off and seeing these nuclear missiles fly through the sky about to land right on their heads. All faces shall gather blackness, or soot, or ash, those people getting burned up by those nuclear missiles. They shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march everyone on his ways. They shall not break their ranks, because the Spirit of the Most High is going to be on these missiles to reach their targets without any problems. Neither shall one thrust another, they shall walk everyone in his path. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. And that sword is symbolic for those anti-missile defense systems which are going to fail in that day, because the Spirit of the Most High is also going to be on those anti-missile defense systems to fail, so those missiles can reach their designated targets without any problems. And when we go to my second article on the WashingtonTimes.com, this is the Most High giving us a little preview of Joel chapter 2, verse 8 taking place. U.S. warship twice fails to intercept ballistic missile in Pacific. Again, and when they shall fall upon the sword, those anti-missile defense systems, they shall not be wounded. The Spirit on the Most High in that day is going to be on those anti-missile defense systems to fail, so those missiles can reach their targets without any problems. A Navy warship in the Pentagon's Missile Defense Agency on Saturday failed twice in a key test to shoot down a medium-range ballistic missile, raising questions about America's readiness to intercept potential enemy attacks. The Defense Department did not reveal a specific location, but it's believed the test took place somewhere off the coast of Hawaii. The announcement of the test's failure comes just one day after the Biden administration requested a fiscal 2022 budget of $8.9 billion for the Missile Defense Agency, MDA, down from its 2021 figure of $9.1 billion. In the past, the U.S. military has conducted successful military intercepts in the region. It's unclear exactly what led to Saturday's failure, and Pentagon officials say a thorough investigation is already underway. The objective of the test was to demonstrate the capability of a ballistic missile defense BMD configured Aegis ship to detect, track, engage, and intercept a medium-range ballistic missile target with a salvo of 2 Standard Missile 6 Dual 2 BMD initialized missiles. However, an intercept was not achieved, the MDA said in a brief statement. Program officials have initiated an extensive review to determine the cause of any problems which may have prevented a successful intercept and will thoroughly analyze the results. Perhaps adding insult to injury, a Russian naval surveillance ship is believed to have been in the theater over the weekend, and its crew may have witnessed the failed test. The U.S. officials have been tracking the Russian vessel since early last week. U.S. Pacific Fleet is aware of the Russian vessel operating in international waters in the vicinity of Hawaii and will continue to track it through the duration of its time here, Fleet spokesman Captain John Gay said in a statement to the media outlet USNI News last week. And what a coincidence that a Russian naval surveillance ship witnessed these anti-ballistic missile systems fail, Hey, that was all through the will of the Most High to build up the spirit of these Russians to see that the U.S. military is on the decline and that they have a chance of going against them when a conflict between the two nations breaks out. And like I said earlier, the Most High has allowed nations like Russia and China to get advanced weapons like these hypersonic weapons, which can go toe-to-toe and surpass what the U.S. currently has. But ultimately, it's through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. It's going to be the spirit of the Most High that's going to cause these anti-missile defense systems to fail in that day, and the spirit of the Most High to be on these Russian and Chinese missiles to reach their targets in the U.S. without any problems. And hey, like it also said back in Joel chapter 2, verse 1, for the day of Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand, and it is very nigh at hand. So like we always tell you sincere Akim out there, you should be doing whatever you can right now to stay in the good graces of your power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, so you can have that protective hedge over you and hope to be saved from this coming nuclear calamity of the third woe. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, speaking of World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter, World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is yet to come. And the two main combatants is going to be the United States of America and Russia. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, which is the biblical name for the United States of America, Babylon the Great, the virgin daughter of Babylon, Mystery Babylon, that whore that sits upon many waters, and the beast in Revelation chapter 17, an assembly of great nations from the north country being Russia. And besides being known as the North Country in Jeremiah 50 verse 9, Russia is also known as Gog in Ezekiel chapter 38, and the Medes in Isaiah chapter 13. And the reason Russia is known as the North Country here is because what's north of the United States of America? You've got Canada, you've got the Arctic Ocean region, and then Russia. And I've done plenty of articles already showing how Russia has been building up its military assets in the Arctic Ocean region. And it's a well-known fact that Russia shooting its missiles from itself across the north and from the Arctic to reach its targets in the United States of America would be the shortest trajectory time for its missiles to hit the U.S. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. And that assembly of great nations from the North Country are not only Russia's allies like China, Iran, and North Korea, but the U.S.'s allies like Britain, France, Germany, and these other NATO nations that are going to turn against her in that day and ally themselves with Russia to altogether shoot those 200 million nuclear warheads onto the United States of America. Just read Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore and eat her flesh and burn her with fire, nuclear fire. Those 10 horns speaking of the European Union, NATO speaking of the beast, NATO, the beast speaking of NATO, and that whore that rides upon the beast, Babylon the Great, the United States of America. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. Those arrows being symbolic for those nuclear missiles. Like I said earlier, when the prophets saw these visions thousands of years ago, they described it the best way they could with what they knew during their times, ancient weapons of war. And when those 200 million nuclear missiles hit the United States of America, it's going to be turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. There's going to be no make America great or build back better. Now I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 17 to 20. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, the spiritual Medes, that north country Russia, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. When the time comes for the Most High to put the spirit on these nations to push that nuclear red button, no peace treaties, peace talks, weapons bans, or the US dollar is going to do anything to stop them from pushing that button. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And what a bows shoot, arrows. So those bows are symbolic for the silos and other launch platforms that these nuclear missiles are going to be fired from. And if you're not of that elect number, the 144,000 or the rest of the righteous 1/3 in the United States of America, when these nuclear missiles hit it, hey, you're just going to be more fuel to the nuclear fire. Nobody outside of that elect number will survive. Verse 19, and Babylon, the United States of America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And how did the Most High overthrow ancient Sodom and Gomorrah? With fire and brimstone from the sky. And he's going to overthrow this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone from the sky, those 200 million nuclear warheads. Because besides being known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures, America is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. After those nuclear missiles hit this place, it's going to be turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then that desolate, uninhabitable wasteland where man, woman, or child will never set foot on ever again. And it's going to stand as a memorial as to what a wicked kingdom looked like, how not to govern the earth, and what the judgment and punishment is for afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.